Hey, folks, this podcast is sponsored by King Arthur Capital Group. Fund your fight camp, showing fighters how to leverage credit and capital so they can treat their career like a business. Love sharing that information with as many people out there in the world as possible. Finances for people in the world of combat sports, always a prevalent topic, always on the forefront of fighters' minds, certainly, as they're going through each stage of their career. So if you're looking to treat your career more like a business, make things work a little bit better for you along the way, hit up King Arthur Capital Group at Fund Your Fight Camp on Instagram. Check out my interlude episode with David King Arthur McElroy, too, if you want to get even more information and details. Also, check out Fight Club Crate, mystery fight gear, knockout prices, undisputed value, combat sports boxes delivered monthly. Use my promo code TAPTHAT15 at Fight Club Crate for 15% off your first purchase, and follow those folks on Instagram at Fight Club Crate. Very cool stuff. They're always adding new things to the mixture. A wide variety of combat sports products, accessories, and whatnot. And with Father's Day right around the corner, that is finally a winner of a gift idea for the combat connoisseur in your life. And last but not least, Substats is the analytics and intelligence platform for competitive grappling, giving promoters, leagues, commentators the data they've never had. Matchmaking tools, athlete profiles, event breakdowns, and match analysis powered by computer vision. If you compete, if you promote, or you just love grappling, check them out at substats.app. If you're into competitive grappling, Substats is building the analytics layer the sport has been missing. Athlete profiles, event intelligence, and match breakdowns. Check them out at substats.app. And use my promo code TAPTHAT for 10% off of your initial purchase with Substats. And now I got to ditch this because I couldn't wear the headphones. I can barely see in these sunglasses, but they were $2. If people can't tell, these are American flag sunglasses. And what is up, everybody? This is Brady Grove bringing you another interlude episode of the No, this is a regular episode. That's how many of those I've been doing. Another episode of the Tap That MMA podcast coming to you live on YouTube Thursday night. And we've got UFC Freedom 250 going down this weekend. On Sunday at 8 p.m., if that is not going to mess with your weekend and the way that you go into work on Monday. But also this weekend, don't forget, there's also PFL Africa early on Saturday. Bam versus Vargas on Saturday night. Don't sleep on those. And for my picks on all that kind of stuff and more, follow me on Instagram at RotoBrady MMA. Twitter, for the last time, has refused to give me my account back. Who would have thought that would have been a hard group to reach out to and get some help from? So we're going mainly Instagram and YouTube, short video formats, really diving into it. It seems to be a trending thing with the kids nowadays. And check out all my recent interlude episodes too. I've been pumping those out, added a bunch more to the calendar just in the last few days. And with me this evening, frequent guest co-host of the Tap That MMA podcast. He had to be on for this episode. Lots of mixed feelings with the UFC Freedom 250 event. Give it up for Connor Bones Slone. Connor, how's it going?
Yeah, it's good to be here, man. I've had a long week, but when you asked me to be on the podcast for the first ever UFC card on the White House lawn, I was like, I cannot pass that opportunity up. So excited to see how it goes. I mean, truly historic, whatever your thoughts are about it. Insanely weird, also insanely cool. Excited to see how it plays out.
There's multiple points to it, all right? Because here's what I'll say. Because obviously there's a lot of controversy associated with this. There has been, like, since Dana White, started his well-publicized friendship with Donald Trump, which has obviously paid pretty big dividends to the UFC. In some way, everybody's getting something out of this. Donald Trump is getting a connection to a very key demographic for him, and the UFC is getting something. I don't know what it is. I think that's the part I'm afraid to find out sometimes. But multiple parts of this is like, if you would have told me as a kid when I first started watching the UFC, when it was still illegal in the state of New York to do MMA there, and Arizona was super against it because that was where John McCain headed up that. If you would have told me that in the future, not in that far along in the future, that they'd be holding a UFC event on the White House lawn, and the president is the one who's like, "Yeah, totally do it. Like, just use my backyard. It'll totally work." It's such a crazy place from where it was not that long ago. What I also say is obviously, people don't like Donald Trump, and so they don't like this. And a lot of people who don't really watch the UFC or watch sports like hate this regardless, just because it's associated with Donald Trump. Here's the thing. Oh, you're gonna have a UFC event on the lawn of a mass murderer? How can you do? Look, man, it's all the United States. All right, I pick me a president who wasn't a mass murderer, and we can have that conversation. All right, they're all bad people, every single one of them, except I don't know, George Washington probably just like taking people out with his bare hands. But like, if you're the president of the United States, you're an evil human being. All right, like there's lots of clubs and groups you have to join to become a part of that. You got to wear a lot of masks along the way. So if you're an MMA fan, what in the hell is that? I swear to God, if you're an MMA fan, as weird as this part is, I would just try to say like, life is short. Try to enjoy this if you can.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about politics on our MMA podcast, but since it is on the White House lawn, we got to address it. And I will start off by saying
political conversation, like a little.
Yeah. I mean, I will start off by saying anybody that knows me basically at all knows that I absolutely despise Trump. I am not a supporter of his whatsoever. That being said, I do have to admit this is pretty cool. I'm kind of, looking past that and saying to myself, hey, if any other president was doing this, I would think it was cool. So I have to admit, I do think this is cool as much as I don't like Trump. And I do get your point. All presidents definitely have some skeletons in the closet. My personal opinion, I think Trump is worse than any other president we've had before to kind of a different degree. But, I respect your opinion. Just wanted to make sure that is well known and well recorded on our discussion here where I stand. But either way, I'm here to watch some fights. I've always been happy to watch fights, and that's not going to change. I will say, though, the one thing that I do not think is as cool, which I don't know if this is completely true yet or not, but apparently Trump has floated the idea of solving diplomacy issues with cage fights, which I think is, I mean, if that happens, Russia is going to just absolutely rule the world. So I don't think that would be the best idea.
Sounds like an excellent idea that could only have good results. If his plan was to send like Sean Strickland out there, that neutralizes a lot of the grappling advantage, I guess. That's a tough one. I think you also have to add up who the allies would be in that situation. We would have Japan. They've been in like about a 30-year rut in MMA, but very rich culture there. Mexico, I'd assume. Canada, like they probably wouldn't go with Russia in a world. Anyway, they're right here. If we have George St. Pierre, then whatever's going on with Brazil, we can deal with, I think. Now China, like Weili Zhang could probably take out like at least like 13 states on her own.
Yep.
Zhang Mingyang, that's the last time I fall for that trap in light heavyweight main event. The dude hits really hard. He just also loves to get really hit really hard in the head on the way there, and that's a problem in light heavyweight. The other thing about this card that is unusual is this is how they're like Gaethje versus Poirier. We knew was coming, and we knew it didn't make sense already. I think we saw going to Pereira for a vacant belt coming, unfortunately. How many vacant and interim belts have been contended for in the heavyweight division just over the last 2 years? So, these are two weird headlining fights where these are fights we knew were coming for a while. We knew they wanted to do them at the White House. For some reason, they wanted to do Pereira. There's a fringe heavyweight at the White House. So those are two weird co-main and main events. The other thing is this isn't as pandering of a card as I thought it'd be in terms of they set Michael Chandler up to get murdered at UFC Freedom 250. And like they didn't give the American fighters like Toby Keith ass matchups where they'd be like, chugging a Budweiser and like waving the flag at the end. Like America might have a losing record at the end of this card. And like to give Josh Hogan Derek Lewis too is like that is one that you'd think like after the Blades fight, you could have set him up with you could have given him Marcin Tybura. Like you could have given him something a little less threat. But Derek Lewis does have that pop. And no matter what, Derek Lewis is a great American. He is certainly a role model to children everywhere.
Fuck them kids. That was a Derek Lewis quote, by the way. I didn't just say that.
That lady was like, "Look at this gentleman. He's never failed a drug test." He's like, I mean, like he did go to prison. I forget what for, but like,
wasn't drugs.
Wasn't drugs. No, he made that very clear. So this is just I don't know how. Of course, excited about this. This is going to be a different feel. It's on a Sunday. It's 7 fights, but like. This is an unfamiliar feeling. Like no card has ever felt like this, and half of the like spectacle of this event was like, holy shit, I can't believe they're like doing this. This is an actual thing that came together. Because when they started talking about it, it was like, okay, they want to do an event on the White House on the guy. And then it got to today, and it was like, holy shit, I think they're actually going to do this. Like they're actually, and so half of the spectacle too is going to be like, oh my god, like is anything outside of the fight's gonna happen? Like is somebody gonna throw a rock into the cage and have like 50 snipers across the street from Pennsylvania Avenue? Like all those things are a lot more real here. Like if Khabib jumped over the fence in this one, he has half a second to live. Like this is a very imagine the security vetting you would have to do of these fighters before having them on the card. It has to be an extensive process. God, you would hope like, in this situation that they like did some due diligence, but it's a much different field of the card. And the people that are on the card that are from the United States are pretty much the ones you'd expect. I would have bet $1 million 8 months ago that Josh Hogan and Bo Nickel would have at least been a part of this. The only person that shocks me is that they didn't find a way to get Colby Covington on this card.
Yeah, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think someone like Max Holloway would have been awesome on this card. A Hawaiian American would really mix things up. They don't have any Hawaiian Americans on this card. Everyone loves Max Holloway. It's impossible not to love Max Holloway. Give him a nice layup after his unfortunate fight with Charles Oliveira. And I don't know if I want to say unfortunate because I love Oliveira almost as much as I love Holloway. So I do think there were some better matchups they could have included. That being said, they are exciting matchups at the end of the day. It's going to be really interesting to see Gaethje get like sacrificed to, the MMA gods by Taporia on the White House lawn. Like there's no chance in my mind that I see Gaethje winning this fight. But at the end of the day, I love UFC. I'm just going to try to appreciate it as much as I can. I am wondering though, are they going to do any like corny shit about the corny patriotic stuff? Probably. Who knows? I'm interested to see how it plays out though.
I mean, there's probably going to be like a little bit. Like it's on the goddamn White House lawn, like that already, like without saying anything, that's already kind of the way there. And it's on Flag Day, which is by far the most useless and unnecessary of the patriotic holidays. But I love Memorial Day. I love the 4th of July. I'm in a peak on those kinds of days. You're grilling, you're drinking Miller Lights and whatnot. Those are good days. Flag Day, no one can get turned up and roll a bunch of steaks and brats for Flag Day. Like then you have a problem. And I don't know if it's with meat or alcohol, but like it's one of them. Yeah. So, and did you hear too the rumor that because Dana White had said there was a big fight we were going to do on this card that fell through at the last second, and someone said that like the fight that fell through was Mackenzie Dern defending the strawweight belt against Jillian Robertson.
I saw that. I was like, Dana, what?
It's like if you're going for like America. Then okay, then that Jillian Robertson's American, right? Like, is she Canadian?
Yeah, I think so.
So, but it's just more shocking to me that I would have thought that Dana White would have broken Olympic sprint records to get Zhang Wei Li back, like fighting for a title. Been after China. A funny way to say, like, leading up to this card, he's been after like the Chinese market for so long. So I'd just be surprised if that was actually what he was doing and leaning into Mackenzie Dern as champion. Though she is popular and she has a great social media following. So, all right. Well, let's get into this 7-fight card. Let's these are all have name value. So let's start at the bottom of the card. Let's start with the first at featherweight between Diego Lopez and Steve Garcia. I don't know enough the hell I'm hearing. It might be an echo from your phone. Because I hear it. So Steve Garcia plus 128 underdog, Diego Lopez minus 148 favorite. Diego Lopez. I was surprised to see this fight as closely handicapped as it is, but the only thing that does concern me with Diego is, you got the one win over Gene Silva in what was a great fight back in September. That's his only win since September of 2024 when he beat Brian Ortega. And then you go back and it's Dan Ige on that crazy 6-hour notice fight. So it's a weird like string of wins coming into this with, and you don't even really know like what it meant when he did beat Ortega. And he struggled with Dan Ige, but like that's partly the circumstances of the fight. And you've got an Alexander Volkanovski 2 pieces of bread making that Gene Silva sandwich, and neither one of those fights against Volk went well for Diego Lopez. And I'm always concerned when a fighter has to spend an extended stretch of time thinking about the same dude, especially when they come up short both times. Now, Steve Garcia has not lost since June of 2022 when he got knocked out by Mahshate. Since then, rattled off 7 straight wins, including Mel Costa, who's been on a good tear of his own, Calvin Kattar, and David Onama. Every single one of those wins, besides one, has been by knockout, and he's mostly been happening in rounds 1 or 2. I mean, he's been putting people away. And so that does concern me. I think Steve Garcia is certainly in play here. And he's proven very hard to beat by decision in his career. Diego, hasn't even won most of his, wins by decision. I think most of them are inside the distance. I think 4 in his career are by decision. But here, like, this is 3 rounds. I don't know if you expect Diego to come out like guns a-blazing. In fact, like he might be like, a little bit trepidatious at first if he's treating it like a 5-round fight and he's anticipating Steve Garcia throwing heat at him. So I do like Diego to ultimately win this fight. I think that he's just going to have the cleaner 3-round work being done with his hands, and I don't think that he'll have anything to worry about outside of the power of Steve Garcia. He certainly has to watch out for any of those big shots, but I like Diego Lopez by decision here.
Yeah, I definitely like Diego Lopez on this one. I think, if you look at his performances against Volk, some people might look at that and say, oh, he's not elite, whatever the case may be, but that's just not the case. I mean, Volkanovski is just a different level of fighter. I think he has proven that time and time again. So, Volkanovski's got his number. There's no shame in that. He's still an elite fighter. I think, his chin is it is held up incredibly well in all of his fights. So I don't think Garcia is going to be able to knock him out. And I think exactly what you said, he's just going to have the cleaner stand up. He has better ability to mix in his ground game when he needs to. So I do like Lopez by decision. Maybe Lopez by knockout if you're feeling frisky on this one.
Yeah, I'd be nervous to go with like the point spread here, which is minus 120 for Diego to cover minus 3.5, because I do think like there's a good chance that if he just gets one hard shot, especially early in the fight, that he could drop around and then it's way harder to do. And folks, like You know who else Alexander Volkanovski made look like he wasn't elite? Max Holloway. Especially the last time that Volk fought Max Holloway, everybody's like, "Oh man, I guess like Max is done." Like this was a whole different thing. This wasn't like a squeaker like the first two. Like he's
Yep.
done. That's just Alexander Volkanovski, and
Exactly.
that speaks to how amazing the people that have beaten Volk, over the last few years are. So, yeah, no shame. The only issue I take with it is after the first fight with Volk, they were way too quick to get Diego right back in there.
100%. Yeah, there's no debating that. I don't know why they did that, but
I mean, they had Diego take a fall so that they didn't have to put Mubzar in a title fight.
exactly.
They made that pretty clear. I don't even think they really denied it.
Yeah.
I think we don't want Mobzar to fight for it. I'm surprised they haven't cut Mobzar the way this year's gone, and all the other people they're cutting. So, and Diego by decision here is plus 375. That's where I'm going.
I like that. Yeah.
And next up, we have a middleweight matchup. I think this one actually is like maybe the second toughest one to call on the whole card. Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dawkins at middleweight. Connor, did you see that Chael Sonnen said that if Bo Nickel wins in impressive fashion, he should call out Sean Strickland for the middleweight title? And I get what Chael's point was, which was like, yeah, like the loss to RDR was, there's nothing to be ashamed. And people take, losses like that, like on their way up. Yeah, I definitely don't think Bo Nickel is like a fraud or that he's done it, that he'll never fight for a title. But like wins over what, like Rodolfo Vieira and Kyle Dawkins.
That doesn't get you a title shot, man.
Yeah, this isn't flyweight 7 years ago. So with this one, naturally, Bo Nickel is the favorite here by a considerable margin. He's minus 330. Kyle Dawkins plus 270. And the wild thing about Kyle Dawkins and why this is so hard to call is like 17-4 as a professional. 33 years old. He was recently, before getting back into the UFC, he was the Cage Fury middleweight champion, defended that belt multiple times. Comes back into the UFC on short notice, I believe, to fight Michel Pereira. Finishes him early and announces he was back. Then gets Gerald Meerschaert in a Darce choke just a few months later, back in November at UFC 322. So Kyle Dawkins, like, his best days could be ahead of him for all we know. If he lost to Eric Anders and Roman Kalish, that was the end of his time in the UFC. Those after beating Jamie Pickett. So, like, I don't want to be a dick, but like, did that count for much? Now, Bo Nickel, 8-1 as a professional. All right. Meteoric rise. We all knew that was coming, before he even signed with the UFC. It was just such a gradual, they do this with people. They bring them up gradually. And just like with Sean O'Malley, you run into someone like RDR, you run into someone like Cheeto, and you get bit. This is a sport where you're allowed to lose. You don't have to remain undefeated. Another aspect of where I'd be concerned that MMA is becoming a little too much like boxing in this modern day. But Bo Nickel, coming off a knockout over Rodolfo Vieira in round 3 back in November at UFC 322. The other best wins that he submitted Cody Brundage very early. The Paul Craig fight was very disappointing. That was not an impressive win. It was 30-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards, but like the optics of it were not 30-27. And that's just because Paul Craig did like a little bit less than Bo every round. But you walked away from that going like, damn it, like Bo Nickel cannot fight the people right now that people are trying to line him up with.
Yeah.
Bo's a finisher. I have no doubt that Bo is improving at an exponential rate, as time goes on. This is still like something comparatively new to him. But like Kyle Dawkins, I mean, if he beats Kyle Dawkins, that might be the best win of his UFC career, which is wild.
Yeah. This one's an interesting matchup, and, I feel like it just depends on which Kyle Dawkins shows up. If the Kyle Dawkins that knocked out Michel Pereira shows up, I could see him getting a win. But I think just that might be my heart speaking because I really don't like Bo Nickel. I think my brain is telling me Bo Nickel wins this 9 out of 10 times. So if I was betting on this fight, I'd probably go Bo Nickel by submission or Bo Nickel by knockout, even maybe. But I think Kyle Dawkins definitely has a bag of tricks or that they can pull out of a hat. So maybe he does. Maybe he gets it would be actually crazy if he was able to darce him. I think if he wins, it's going to be by knockout. But hey, you never know. Weird things have happened.
Dude, Bo Nichols seems like a very hard dude to Darce choke. Imagine if Kyle Dawkins had that level of control at some point in the fight. Like, that would be crazy. But what you said is what makes me nervous, and it's what made me nervous about him fighting Paul Craig, too, is like the bag of tricks people. Those are the people that Bo Nickel is like, you should be worried with. Like, could Bo Nickel beat like Roman Dolidze right now? Yeah, I think he definitely. Could he beat Edmund Shabazian right now? I definitely think he could do that. It's these bag of tricks people. It's the RDRs. It's Paul Craig a few years before he actually fought Bo Nickel. It's Kyle Dawkins, who comes roaring back into the UFC looking like a whole new version of himself. That part does concern me. I think it's going to be very hard to submit Bo Nickel. I think like if Kyle Dawkins is able to pull this out, I think it'd be by decision or actually by like knockout, because we saw Bo freeze up when RDR started landing those rickety shots on him. And he fell asleep. He didn't take it seriously. And then the fight was over. So I would probably go like Bo inside the distance if I had to pick something a little bit more specific. Maybe like Bo to cover -3.5, because like if he wins the decision, I think like it's one that he probably wins all 3 rounds, even if it's unimpressive, like against Paul Craig. But the way I've used him so far is like I put Bo Nickel in like these longer parlays that I'm doing for this card, just money line. Because you don't have as many options this week as you normally do. So, and if there's one thing that I can say with any amount of confidence, it's like I think Bo Nickel should win this fight. How
I
it
think that makes
happens,
sense.
it's like fishing for Bo Nickel. It's like whatever like he ends up, wherever you end up landing, whatever he grabs, like that is how the fight could end. So I don't know. That one is a big question mark. And it's one that like I'm not gonna have a lot on because who knows with both of these dudes. Kyle Dawkins might have improved even more than Bo Nickel has since their last fight. And so now, moving on to the next one. Lightweight. Mauricio Hoofy against Michael Chandler. Connor, I think the most concerning part about this event and America in general today is that now we've resorted to airing public executions on TV. Because they set Michael Chandler up with Mauricio Hoofy, and if it was before the Paddy Pimblett fight, I'd be like, nah, like, Michael Chandler is still like this freak athlete, muscle shark, obviously at some point roided up dude he's got freaky athleticism. He's a great wrestler. He's got great power. But Paddy Pimblett fucked him up in every department, and it shouldn't have been like that. You look at Paddy Pimblett, how he handled Tony Ferguson on the feet, and then what happened against Michael Chandler. Paddy improved too. But at this point in Michael Chandler's career, for how old he is, for all the damage that he's taken, born in 1986, he has lost 5 of his last 6 fights. His last win was May of 2022, over 4 years ago, against Tony Ferguson. And he's been, he got finished by Paddy Pimblett. It was ugly. And Michael Chandler took a lifetime worth of damage in all of his Bellator title fights before he even signed with the UFC. Now, Mauricio Hoofy was one that I was proud to be correct on in picking BSD to beat him back in September of 2025. Mauricio Hoofy, now that he's after the Fiziev fight, if he was coming off the BSD fight, or if he was coming off just beating Bobby Green, I'd be a lot more skeptical as I was before the BSD fight. But here, like after the Fiziev fight, whatever the state of Fiziev's body, as like he's had the injuries that he's had, That one gives me a lot more confidence here. I think that he is going to be able to touch Michael Chandler. I think if he touches him and if he starts to do his freaky, hoofy shit and starts throwing crazy kicks and gets creative with it, I think it's a matter of time. It's not one that I think, like, dude, be careful. Like, Chandler a few years ago, sure, when he was a millisecond away from being the UFC lightweight champion and finishing gold, sure. But the dude is 40 years old and has not won in over 4 years. I like Mauricio Hoofy by knockout, and those are not profitable odds, but that's one that I've been throwing in a parlay too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think this is an absolute layup for Roofy. I mean, Michael Chandler, he's just over the hill. He's always explosive. He's always powerful, but he just hasn't been able to land consistently. He just throws big power shots. Roofy is definitely nimble enough to get out of the way of those power shots, counter those shots. Mix in some kicks, mix in some takedowns if he wants to. I think Roofy by knockout, like, that's what's going to happen here. Even if the odds are not great on it, throw it in as a parlay. But I think this one, I don't know. I don't want to say it's almost a foregone conclusion, but that's just how I kind of feeling on it.
Michael Chandler waited 2 years to fight Conor McGregor.
That's so awful.
That poor bastard, dude. I mean, things could be different. I don't know how much, but they could be. And he wouldn't have had to hear all those jokes for 2 years about him loyally waiting. Remember when Islam showed that picture of, like, that Japanese dog that, like, waited, like, until the war was over for its owner to come home? And he was like, he called Michael Chandler that, and I was like, God damn it! I didn't know Islam had that kind of shit talking in him. Yeah, I like Michael. I always loved him in Bellator, and obviously, like, he's kind of a corny dude. Obviously, he's leaning very in. You knew he was going to want to be on this card. I hope this doesn't look incredibly ugly, but I think there's a very good chance that it does. And now, Connor, the fight that really could cause, like, riots in the street. Not for what happens in the fight, but for what happens before and after. Heavyweight. Josh Hokett, Derek Lewis. Two of the more polar, different, but unique personalities the heavyweight division has ever seen. Derek Lewis, I can't believe that is his authentic personality. Like, that's just him. Josh Hokett, I cannot believe he has the energy to keep this character up all the time. And to make this point real quick too, because this always bothers me with the people who maybe don't even like the UFC or MMA, but, like, obviously people who lean a different way politically than Josh Hokett, which is like 99% of the universe when he's in character. I don't know what he really thinks, by the way. That's a bit he's doing. But people will be like, Josh Hogan, no one cares about it. It's just stupid and immature what he's doing. I'm like, then shut the fuck up about him. That's all you have to do. People will argue that point. Like, nobody cares. He doesn't upset anybody. It's just what he's doing is stupid. I'm like, we are talking about this at 1 a.m. on the internet. We're discussing this right now. You're putting money in his pocket. Get off of whatever message you're trying to deliver about the rehearsed lines Hogan delivers like Hulk Hogan. And if you want him to go away, shut the fuck up and stop being upset by things he says, because that is where he's making his goddamn living. People struggle with that concept so much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I just find it all super cringe. Like, him and Colby, just people that are obviously playing a character. I get it, but at the same time, I just find it cringe. Like, just be authentic. No matter what you are authentically, that's just gonna come off better. But at the same time, I do get it. Like, they just want to make money from doing that. And if you believe what Colby said about him on a winning streak, almost getting cut, it makes sense, even if they're approaching it the wrong way. But either way, this is just such a crazy matchup. I mean, I think prime Derek Lewis has this in the bag, but I think Derek Lewis today, I don't know. I think Hokett's just too fast and going to have too much cardio for him. Unfortunately, I think Derek Lewis gets knocked out here. But hey, if anyone can prove me wrong, it's Derek Lewis. So Derek Lewis, go out there and prove me wrong. Get a good knockout for the kids.
The thing is about Hogan, dude, is like when they had him as the favorite against Curtis Blades going into that, I was like, dude, like pump the brakes a bit, all right? Like
Yep.
he did knock out Denzel Freeman with a middle finger, which was very impressive. But the thing about Josh Hogan is that he really is like a different kind of athlete than we see at heavyweight. People want to dig on him because he didn't make it in the NFL, and it's like, dude, as a fullback / running back at Fresno State, he rushed for like 400 yards and 7 touchdowns one set. Like he was a good football player, and you know he wasn't like a champion wrestler, but he's an athlete, and
Yep.
that is not the case for most people at heavyweight. And no matter what, like you could be as skeptical as you wanted to beforehand, but after the fight with Curtis Blades, it was like, all right, I defer to you on this one because you're obviously way better, way quicker than I ever thought. And so, like, you know, if this is a different time for Derek Lewis, sure, like you know. We used to see a time where it was very hard to knock Derek Lewis out too, and obviously that just starts to go with age. And what Josh Hogan did to Curtis Blades, doing the whole bit during the fight, flipping him off when he was exhausted and like overselling how exhausted he was, trading the hands with him the whole time, never ending up in a position on the ground where you ended up so tired that Curtis Blades can finish you with ground and pound. Of course, the character's cringe. But aside from all that, I'm impressed with the level of athlete that he is, and I was very impressed with his fight against Curtis Blades.
Yeah, complete agreement. He's a beast. He showed that in the Curtis Blades fight. I think he's got some speed and athleticism for heavyweight, and that's exactly what heavyweight needs right now. So, as much as I think he's cringe, I'm excited to watch him fight.
And guess what? Because of the state of the heavyweight division, Josh Hogan got to cut the whole line of anybody that's been put, because all he did was get a microphone and say some crazy shit with an American flag bandana on and say, your career just advanced like 8 times what it would normally do. And look, I know it's not a perfect comparison, but I brought this point up with Jay Perrin. Leonardo DiCaprio got paid millions of dollars to pretend to be a slave owner. I don't see too much of a difference between that and what people do when they're like, oh yeah, this is a bit. When Colby is like, oh yeah, you know, that's a character that I do to get people excited. We're trying to sell a fight, you know. That's him really talking, and then he's like, yeah, Brazil, this place is a dump, you're a whole bunch of filthy animals, and he's like, oh guys, you know, I'm just kidding. Like, it works every single time. People know you're gonna do it, and you're like, hey man, like you're a loser, your dad was in jail, and people are like, I want to kill that piece of shit. And it's like, dude, take a deep breath. This is McGregor all over again. Don't let him get in your head, dude. He's lying. It's a character.
It's better to be infamous than not famous at all.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, unless you like end up in like prison for life or something, but 99% of the time, yeah, that is
funny because the originator of that quote is in prison, I think, for life. So
I mean, look at Ian Gary, look at Bilal Muhammad. There was a time where people didn't give a shit about those guys, and then they found a way to bother, like just be like hated and like annoy people enough that like it made them famous. And there is no good famous or bad famous in fighting. You're just famous. And especially when you're putting on a goddamn event at the White House, that is important. I just wonder what Josh Hogan is going to say if he wins and they give him a microphone.
He'll probably like beg to get a handshake from Donald Trump or something super cringe. Like we'll probably call him like Daddy Trump and ask to be tucked in by him or something like that. You know how they are.
Or he'll ask to be like made ambassador to like Barbados or something, and like they'll actually do it, like something like that.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I expect this fight to be entertaining. It'd be cool if Derek Lewis won, but
be awesome.
to actually give a projection on the fight, yeah, like this is just too beyond Derek Lewis in his years right now. He's not going to be able to keep up with the speed and the agility of Josh Hokett. Josh Hokett, if he wants to, I don't think he, will go there unless he needs to. But if he needed to get it down to the ground, I think that he could. I think it'd be a struggle, but I think that he could. But Derek Lewis is going to be trying to, swing a sledgehammer and land it once. And Josh Hokett is going to be swinging like, crowbars with both hands for, as long as the fight goes on. And that's a problem.
Exactly.
So yeah, Hokett by knockout. That's where I'm going. I don't see Derek Lewis and Hokett surviving those 3 rounds like he did with Curtis Blades. Because Curtis Blades also, like, that was one of the most savage beatings I've seen someone survive to, and he almost came back and won. That was a great fight, and actually a great one that you'll remember, not just like you're told that it was great.
Yeah, all time.
And now to another America Dana White poster boy that people have a lot of mixed feelings about. Connor, we have a bantamweight matchup between Ayman Zahabi and Sugar Sean O'Malley. Sugar Sean, I like Sean O'Malley. I think, people always held the Petr Yan win against him. People held the Aljo win against him. But I have no problem with Sean O'Malley, the person, at all. Where the UFC did wrong was trying to make him be a superstar. You can't make anybody see someone as a superstar. Sean O'Malley's a star. Superstar is a different thing entirely. Yeah, I see people out and about with a Sugar Sean O'Malley t-shirt on. That's more than you'd ever expect for someone from the UFC. I don't see many t-shirts like that. But it led to, he also had the rainbow hair around the time that 6ix9ine was still famous, and that didn't do him any favors either. But he's fighting Ayman Zahabi. And so Sean O'Malley is the favorite here, minus 425, Zahabi plus 325. Zahabi is up there in age. He was born in 1987. This dude has quietly put together 7 straight wins since February 2021. And it's gotten more. His last 4, Javid Basharat, Pedro Munoz, Jose Aldo, and Marlon Vera, all decision wins. It was a split decision win over Marlon Vera. But hell of a run by Ayman Zahabi at this point in his career. Sean O'Malley has won one of his last 3 fights because he fought Merab twice in a row. And the second one went a lot worse than the first one. And there's going to be volume to this fight. Probably, it wouldn't shock me if we see easily 200 plus significant strikes landed between the two of them. That's not how the Song Yadong fight went, though, because they had to be so careful with each other because they knew there was going to be volume, but they both had power too. Sean O'Malley, I think he won the Song Yadong fight, but barely. It was by a razor thin margin. There's nothing wrong with that. Song Yadong is, a very highly ranked bantamweight. But Sean ends up in these close fights. And so does Zahabi if Sean can't put it away. And sometimes I think Sean falls in love with how pretty his striking looks sometimes and plays with his food maybe a little bit too much. This is one where in DFS for DraftKings folks this week, you have to either take an underdog that you think doesn't have a chance to win, or you have to hedge your lineup and pick 2 guys that are fighting each other and hope that you did one where you pick the right underdog. This is one where I am throwing Zahabi and Sean O'Malley in the same lineup if you have to with your budget, because very easily I can see this being, coming down to 1 round. And I think that, it could come down to who just, flicked a few more out there, who landed the hardest shot. But I could definitely see this being a very close fight. Zahabi, even though he is up there in age, he hasn't been knocked out since 2017. Ricardo Ramos did that. I don't know what to make from that, but he got knocked down by Cheeto, and it wasn't finished. Aldo knocked him down, and he still won by unanimous decision.
Yeah, Aldo soccer kicked him. Imagine getting soccer kicked by Aldo and then coming back and winning the fight.
Soccer kicked by Jose Aldo, who I'm quite sure is quite proficient at soccer. But so this is one that I could definitely see being a dangerous matchup for Sean, just like Song Yudong. I think he should win this. I would favor it by decision. That's my favorite method of victory play here, but no point spreads. By knockout, I don't think works well for either one of them. If you are going to knockout, it's on Sean's side. This is one where I could see betting that it goes to a split decision, or betting that someone wins specifically by a split decision.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
This is a dangerous one. The hobby's a dangerous fight for almost everybody at bantamweight the way that he fights. So this should be Sean's. But Zahavi has nothing to lose here. This is the biggest opportunity he's ever received.
Yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement. I give the edge to Sean, but I definitely think Zahavi has much better of a chance than the odds say. So I think he is definitely one of the better underdogs to pick on the card. And I think overall it will be a close fight. I think exactly like you said, maybe one to even consider betting on a split decision outcome specifically.
Yeah, Zahavi by decision plus 475. Sean O'Malley for the fight to go to split decision or majority plus 550. Sean O'Malley by split decision plus 850. Zahavi by split decision plus 1300. I think we can see all of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now next up, oh my God, we might actually make it through in good time here. We got 2 fights left, Connor. 7-fight card is strange. It's like a Showtime boxing event, and we're to the co-main event for the vacant heavyweight title of the world. You've heard that so many times. The top of this division is just a mess, especially with like what Pereira says like he might do afterward. Like, oh yeah, like might be done after that. And it's like, cool, love to see that happen. Another vacant title fight, that'd be cool. And Cyril Gane finds himself in this position again. Always the bridesmaid, once the interim bride for Cyril Gane. And this fight is practically pick'em. It was exactly pick'em earlier in the week, and that is where it remains. Minus 110 for both of them. So obviously Cyril Gane coming off of the no contest against Tom Aspinall. We don't know how that fight would have ended. It ended way too soon. Tom Aspinall, I said it very early, if you recall, that after that injury, I was like, Tom Aspinall might not fight again. If it's as serious as they said. And so we don't know. Cyril Gane could have shocked us all and beaten Tom Aspinall, and we'd be looking at him in a different light. His last win was the split decision win over Alexander Volkov that he did not win. Alexander Volkov was the better fighter in that one. So that doesn't speak great. And then 2 wins ago is a knockout over Sergey Spivak, which is just a prerequisite to be in this position. You have to be able to do that. Yep. I don't know what Alex Pereira would do to Sergey Spivak. And then Pereira coming up to heavyweight after heroically reclaiming the light heavyweight belt against Magomed Ankalaev back in UFC 320, trying to become the first 3-division UFC. I think that these are 2 very sports players. Pereira, Gane is a rare thing at heavyweight too, and the agility as a striker he possesses. You don't see that kind of technical proficiency in striking at heavyweight like that. And Gane has showed that, if it becomes an MMA fight, he can do that. If he wanted to just try to hold Pereira on the ground for a little bit, I think that he could do that. And I think that this fight more goes the way of Pereira versus Jan Blachowicz. I think it would be hard to deny that the size difference is going to affect the way that this fight goes down. Who do I think is more dangerous on the feet, pound for pound? It is Alex Pereira. He has the greater pound for pound knockout power. He's he's the smaller, he's not built like a heavyweight. This is a dude that this is a cruiserweight, but he's going to be fighting at heavyweight here. So, but Pereira enjoys getting hit, and he doesn't shy away from getting hit. That part concerns me. I've been betting Pereira money line pick him. I think that's the more fun bet. No one is looking forward tomorrow except for or on Monday, except for the country of France, to having Cyril Gane as your absolute 100%. That guy's the heavyweight champion. Good for him, but no one believes that is actually the number one heavyweight in the world when you're considering the peripheral dudes. Pereira winning and becoming the UFC's first 3-division champion would be very exciting. And it adds so much to the legend of him. So maybe that's a little bit more me betting with, my heart, or trying to get more excited about that pick. Gane's size, I said that too when John Jones moved up to heavyweight. I was like, he's never fought at heavyweight before. Then John Jones walked out and I was like, Jesus Christ, I swear to God, that guy weighs 700 pounds right now. So let's see what Pereira actually looks like in the octagon too. You might feel way differently about this 5 seconds before the fight's going to start.
Yeah, no, I honestly think there's not going to be that much of a size discrepancy. I saw a picture of Pereira, and he's at 250, I think maybe even a little bit north of 250. So if Gane has a size advantage, it's not going to be that significant. And, Gane isn't a grappler, so I think Pereira is very comfortable fighting guys that are bigger than he is. I think he's done that previously in Glory. He's fought some light heavyweights that, at the time of the fight, I think were a bit bigger than him. So I don't think that's going to be a huge factor. And I think Cyril Gane is not going to be used to fighting someone that is agile and quick as Pereira. Cyril Gane has always looked more athletic, quicker, faster than all of his opponents because he's fighting at heavyweight. Pereira is going to be able to match that, and I think that's going to throw Gane off. So I actually like Pereira here. It might just be my bias talking because I want Pereira to become that triple champ. That would be the coolest thing ever. Anyone who knows me knows that I love Alex Pereira. So I could be a little bit biased here, but I like Pereira in this.
I just wish we could have seen 60 more seconds of Gane versus Aspinall, because Gane looked really good that first round. And, a lot more could have happened, but that version of Cyril Gane, if that's who shows up and not the one that fought Alexander Volkov, this is going to be a very interesting fight. But, especially if Pereira makes it a priority to go after Gane's legs, he's so good at doing. That could start the fight on a course to the end, in the very early stages. So I'm not picking a method of victory here. We've seen Pereira have a mixture of decisions and knockouts, and there's no great rhyme or reason to it all the time. So I'm happy with, being able to put a few bucks on Pereira money line and see if he makes history.
Same.
And Connor, we are to the main event of UFC Freedom 250. It is for the lightweight title of the world. Ilia Topuria, the man representing Spain, a viable 1700s and 1800s power. Ilia Topuria is bringing him back. Justin Gaethje putting America on his shoulders here, getting one more crack at the lightweight belt. Justin Gaethje is a plus 400 underdog. There's only 2 people in the world that Justin Gaethje would be a plus 400 underdog against. This is one of them. The other one is named Islam Makhachev. Gaethje is coming off of 2 wins in a row. Beat Rafael Fiziev. That was good to see. After the first one, which I had a lot of questions about whether he won. The second one was, pretty close to the knockout, head kick of Dustin Poirier. He's won 4 of his last 5 fights. He just got knocked out in one of the most iconic knockouts of the last decade in the UFC in the BMF fight with Max Holloway. In that great moment that they created. And then he taught Paddy Pimblett a very harsh lesson in his last fight about the levels that there are to this sport, especially in the lightweight division. Even though the numbers don't look that bad for Paddy, Justin Gaethje absolutely took it to Paddy Pimblett in that fight. And really like broke Paddy down. You could see it on Paddy's face as the fight went on. He really like, I don't have anything for Justin Gaethje today. And maybe in a few years, but Gaethje will be gone and we'll see where Paddy Pimblett is. But you know, for Gaethje being like talking so much about retirement, and for him like always being just a little bit short of the actual UFC lightweight belt and everything, like he's done very well over the last 5 fights. He hasn't fought any like, people that were layups. No one was a layup in that stretch, and the only person that beat him was Max Holloway in what was an absolute banger of a fight. But Ilia Topuria is just like a different specimen. He's 9 years younger. He has never lost as a professional, 17-0. This guy in his last 3 fights knocked out Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and Charles Oliveira. And he knocked out Charles Oliveira quick. Ilia Topuria has been on a rampage of finishing all of our heroes of the last like 8 to 10 years or whatever. So it makes me kind of hate Ilya because you hate seeing him do people like Charles and Max Holloway like that. At the same, like he is like cool as the other side of the pillow, that Spaniard. That whole Rose shit he was doing, that promo video he made himself before the Volk fight. Like, this guy's got some like natural charisma. He's a very handsome Spaniard. I'll give him that too. Like that's, if he was in a Dolce and Gabbana ad and I didn't know that wouldn't seem out of place. So I'll say that for him. And Justin Gaethje is many things, but I would not call him objectively handsome once you get past the teeth. So it's just so hard to pick anything besides Ilya getting this knockout.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so hard just to consider anything besides Ilya by knockout. I mean, he's just so powerful. He lands right on the button. He is probably the best boxer in the UFC right now. So I just have to imagine he gets it done.
And I mean, the word sniper gets thrown around a lot. Ilia Topuria is the true definition of a sniper knockout artist in MMA, where it's like the shot that he puts people away with are 100% bullseye, and with the finishing power that so well calculated, the athletic intelligence that must be passing through his nerves and through his brainstem when he's fighting is a different level of a competitor. So like the idea that I would ever see Justin Gaethje as an underdog like this in a main event, and I wouldn't even be thinking about it. Like, not, I don't think Justin Gaethje will do any of the things that maybe he should do. Like, it would like, dude, maybe wrestle a little bit because you're kind of good at. Keep throwing the leg kick. Why did you stop throwing those leg kicks? Don't invite yourself to get hit with like concussive shots over. He's going to go absolutely balls to the walls in this fight. That's been everything leading up to this, is him being like, look, this is my last hurrah on this one. And I think that he's going to go for broke, and that 999 times out of 1,000 against Topuria is going to end with Justin Gaethje face down on the canvas.
100%.
So Topuria by knockout, you're not getting a great number on that. That's minus 235.
I mean, honestly, it's still kind of worth it to me. I think that's what's going to happen.
It's a good parlay piece, like the speed by knockout. If I was going to be a little bit more specific, maybe maybe Topuria in round 3 by knockout, which
I was going to say round 2 or 3.
Plus 800 for round 3 by knockout.
Man, they really don't think Justin's going to make it very far.
I mean, and will it be painful on the way to round 3? Yeah. It was painful when Max Holloway made it to round 3. Like that was hard to watch. But is Justin Gaethje like thick enough in the skull and just stupid and brave enough to like survive to round 3 on the White House lawn? Yeah, and that's where you're getting plus 800 value. So, and Ilya Topuria, absolute smash DFS play. The money that you spend for it in a weird week like this is worth it. And now we see what's next for Ilya Topuria. Maybe he'll go up to light heavyweight or whatever the hell people are doing now and defend a belt once or twice. Connor, that's UFC Freedom 250. We had some pretty strong thoughts on pretty much all of those fights. Every one of these is going to be one that's like, holy shit, it's starting. Everybody get in here on a Sunday night. So I'm looking forward to it. I am expecting curveballs, expecting this to not necessarily be the way that every card feels. But I think that these fights should deliver entertainment. And 5 to 6 out of 7 of them, whoever wins it, it's going to have high stakes for that division. So before we go here, any closing thoughts on this card and anything surrounding it?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on this card and everything surrounding it, but for now, I'm just going to say enjoy these fights, but also just remember to be engaged politically, whatever that means to you, but that is how I will end things.
There's a lot of room for interpretation on there. Like,
yes, there is.
Dude, like hearing something like that might have that's like we got John Lennon killed. That's like some catcher so yeah, had to bring Connor on for a special live stream before this gem of a card. What an absurd spectacle we will all be treated to on Sunday. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be great. Everybody, thank you for watching this. I'm gonna be putting out short clips of this steadily as we lead up to Sunday too. Everybody, God bless America. Thank you for listening. Have yourselves a great week. Enjoy UFC Freedom 250 and peace. I was trying to think of some other America shit to say.
Take me freedom.
Take me out to the ball game should be the real national anthem. That's my political engagement. Change the national anthem to take me out to the ball game, the thing that really gets people moved. See you, everybody. Have a good one. Enjoy Sunday night.